Today you're going to experiment with inks and you are going to create an experimental graffiti initial in your sketchbook. So if you can see, I've got EB here, and that's for my name, Eliza Beck, and I've used these sheets here to help me design my initials on my page. You don't have to copy them exactly. You mustn't trace. You need to make sure that your design fills your page. I really like arrows in graffiti work, so I've popped a couple of arrows in the background. You could add drips or splashes or the clouds, any of the other details that we've been looking at. You're going to be using inks today, and one thing I want you to notice is that the inks, it's quite hard to actually tell what colour they are. So you will need a piece of scrap paper so that you can test. This one looks like it might be black, but if you look, it actually comes out as a dark blue. And this one again looks black, but it's actually purple. So you will need a piece of scrap paper by the side so that you can tell which colours you're going to use before putting them on your final piece. So I'm going to show you the colour fade method, so the gradient method, where you're going to fade from one colour all the way through to its lightest tone. I'm going to use the purple for this one. Start off really, really dark at the top. Keep refilling your brush so you've got your absolute darkest tone. And paint really neatly around those lines. Should be so that your pencil line disappears, but you need to make sure that you don't draw too hard with your pencil in the first place. So I'm going to start to fade the colour slightly, and the way I'm going to do that is by cleaning my brush, flicking it off just a little bit, and then using just the water on the brush to fade that colour through, and you'll see that the colour will actually start moving down. If it's still quite dark, you can move that, reactivate that colour and move it down your letter. With this technique you might get patches, it's not going to be perfect, and you might get streaking in your work as well, but actually that adds to the effect. So here I'm going to go for my even paler tone. In fact, I've gone over a little bit there, but that's going to be a different colour, so I'll be washing back over that anyway. So you can see that the colour gradually fades through to a really pale lilac. And I'm going to go up there, just add a little bit of colour, because I want it to look as if it's following the colours here. Doesn't matter if it's slightly different. And I'm going to fade that through to that lilac colour. Before you paint anything else around that, you will need to make sure that this is dry. So that area is dry enough to work on this part of the bee, but here it's still quite wet. So that would mean that the colours from the bee would start to sort of bleed into this letter, which we don't want to happen. So always make sure that you're working on a dry area. Now I'm going to go for the orange. And this one I'm going to do an ombre. So you remember the ombre is where you blend colours together. So it's the colour blend method. A bit like a sunset. That brush is a bit dry. I'm going to fade it through slightly there. If you remember, we need slightly faded areas so that we can actually blend those colours together. I'm going to use a turquoisey colour. There we go. So with the turquoise, I'm just going to find my colour. That's the lighter one. I want the slightly darker one. There we go. And I'm going to blend that up. This is dried enough now to limit any bleeding. So I'm going to go really dark at the bottom. edges are a little bit rushed just 'cause I'm trying to do the video, but take real care when you're going around the edges. And then in a moment I'm going to start blending those two colours together. So I'm going to use the water to lighten the blue. Notice I haven't actually started mixing the colours as yet. I'm going to wash off my brush because I don't want too much ink on there. I'm going to activate the blue in that area, and as the two colours mix, you will see that they create a new colour, so it's like a greeny gold. I'm going to get a bit of that orange and just mix it into this blue just a little bit because I want it to be a greeny area here. Okay, and that's how you do the colour fade and the colour blend on a larger letter using the inks.